Egress slightly more lively than ingress at Portman Road at the moment, but no problem. A squad audit and transfer tittle tattle incoming. Let's give the people what they want on Blue Monday and Ipswich Town podcast. Good evening. Welcome to Blue Monday for a traitors-free, no spoilers please catch-up show on the transfers and the general makeup of the Ipswich Town squad as it stands at the moment as we enter the second week of the transfer window. Joining me for sexy chat is Joe Fairs. How are you doing, Joe?
Yeah, good. Just sort of blown away by all the transfer business at Ipswich so far. Sort of been very hard to keep up with all the exciting incomings, outgoings, rumours.
Well, we should do our best to try and make sense of this maelstrom of updates and what's true, what's not, what's agent led, etc., etc. As you say, there's been so much of it flying around. They both lied through their teeth. Good evening to those of you who have joined us. Good evening to Paul. Good evening to Andy. Good evening to Neil. Who and when will be the first through the door, he asks. Well, we don't know and we don't know. I tell you, it will not be any time before the 15th of January, Neil, if that's of any help to you. What we hope to do later on in the show is we'll go through some names that have been mentioned. But if anybody in the chat has any thoughts on names, specifically realistic names, then please do feel free to stick them in the chat. We all know the areas potentially that need strengthening. That's the easy part. It's the realistic names that are the tricky bit. Hello to David. Best wishes from Helsinki in Finland. Oh, I thought it was cold here, David. Hello to Gary as well. Good evening to you, Gary. So yeah, what we'll do first of all, actually, it's been a little bit remiss of us, Joe and I, predominantly I. Apologies for tardiness on our behalf. I know everyone's pretty much been waiting for it since the first week of December. But due to the matches we had in December and an impromptu trip for myself to Adelaide to watch a couple of days of cricket pre-Christmas, we haven't been able to give the people what they want in terms of the Blue Monday Player of the Month awards for November and indeed December. So which is what we're going to do now at the beginning of the show. Just as a refresher for yourselves, the recipients of this highly acclaimed award for August was, Joe, can you remember?
Ashley Young.
It was, correct. And for September, can you remember?
Jaden Philogene.
Very good. Good. I'm asking you. I don't think I'd bother asking in the chat. People may not get it right. And finally, do you remember October? It's probably a sign of how well we did in October. October's Player of the Month.
It was Alex Palmer. So it's sort of been a bit of a kiss of death for two people this award so far. That they've barely started a game since they've won the award in Ashley Young and Alex Palmer's case. One for differing reasons, one for injury reasons, and having his replacement come in and do very, very well. So hopefully the November and December's winners don't suffer the same fate and follow Jaden Philogene's example from October.
Very much so. So in terms of just to give a reminder to people what happened way back when in November before you put on a stone and enjoyed yourselves over Christmas and New Year, it was the month of the 2-4-1 away wins. It was the month of the 2 draws at home to Watford and Wrexham, and you'll probably remember more the loss away to Oxford. It was that month. So played 6, won 3, drew 2, lost 1. Points per game 1.83. And Joe, you've been collating the scores from the various Blue Monday contributors throughout the main show and the top tier and the guys who do the blogs on the top tier site as well. Top 3 in joint third place, Leif Davis, Dara O'Shea, Jack Taylor. Second place, Marcelino Nunes. And our player of the month for November was, Joe?
Azor Matasiwa. A well-deserved award. I think he's probably, he's been very, very good all season, and he's been sort of really knocking on the door of winning this coveted award.
Yeah, a very steady season, full stop, and a particularly steady month for November. Possibly at that time, it was also still showing us where we were maybe lacking, that none of our attacking players were getting the plaudits maybe at that particular time. But as I say, I don't think anybody can begrudge the performances that we've seen pretty much since the start of the season. Certainly once he got into his stride first couple of weeks of the season, it's been a ridiculously consistent performance match on match ever since. In terms of his award, just got a picture of Azor there with his November award. He looks over the moon to have received that. So congratulations to him. Moving on to December, and as I said before, one of the reasons why we didn't do the November show was the sheer weight of numbers in terms of what was going on in December. 7 matches in December. Away results and performances, two poor away results and performances, really. Away to Blackburn, 3. Away Blackburn, Leicester and Millwall, arguably. 2 matches against Coventry, though, were certainly the highlights of that month. And then also the wins, Stoke and Wednesday, we had at home. So 7 matches during the course of December. I think pretty much everyone agrees that we had a good December and certainly a good festive period. 7 matches within December, 4 wins, 2 draws and a loss. The fabled 2 points per game throughout December. In terms of the players' ratings, the joint third was the aforementioned Azor Matasiwa and the aforementioned Marcelino Nunes. So 2 consistent performances throughout those 2 months. Second, maybe a little bit surprisingly, but a good sign, I think, for his upward curve in terms of performances. Darnell Furlong, a right back, getting our second place award. And Joe, would you like to let everyone know who won the Player of the Month, Blue Monday Player of the Month for the month of December?
It was Cedric Kipre. So a player who didn't start the season in the team, but has really come in and been really, really good all season, really, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. Certainly since he's even at the time where he was toing and froing a bit with Jacob Greaves, he's really looked the part. He's looked like what we hoped we were getting, really, I suppose, when we signed him. He's looked like a proper, solid championship defender, hasn't he? He hasn't looked out of place at all, certainly from, a strength perspective. I don't think there's many stronger players in the championship than Cedric Kipre, but also from a pace perspective and a reading of the game and winning of his headers, and also in terms of his passing out from the back as well, I think has improved markedly since the start of the season as well.
Yeah, and that's off both feet as well, as he's sort of playing on the left, which I guess it's not his natural side to play, being a right footer, but he's sort of getting very used to playing out there, playing some lovely sort of outside of the ball passes. When you see the Jack Clark goal at Coventry, it's him who wins the ball really high up the pitch, comes in and sort of gives Hadji Wright no chance, rolls the ball out to Davis and sort of gives it forward, and then it goes out to Jack Clark, and then he's still bounding his way into the box, looking for a sort of square ball to see if he can do anything with it. Yeah, so he's playing really, really well in all regards. And defensively, we've been very good as a team all season. He's a big part of that.
Yeah, definitely. And he's also getting up and winning a few headers at attacking corners now as well, isn't he? To Mike's point here, Mike's put a comment in the chat that, yes, throughout December it is mostly defenders in there. But I don't know whether, Joe, we've had quite a more consistent selection throughout all of our games, really, in defence. Now that Kipre is cementing that spot in centre defence, then you can pretty much hang your hat on what our back 5 is going to be, match on match on match. And maybe that helps because the front 4 do tend to chop and change a little bit more. And therefore, your ratings may not be quite so high, but also it's just a consistency of playing week on week on week, I suppose.
Yeah, and also that they're playing a shorter game when they're on the pitch. A lot of the attacking players go off after 60, 65 minutes. They don't get the full 90 minutes to try and contribute something, because ultimately that's what they're there for, to contribute something on the score sheet. And you look at the results we had in December, and you're talking about that 1-1 draw at Blackburn, which is a pretty poor performance, 0-0 at Millwall, which wasn't a great performance. And really, with the way we play, we tend to dominate the ball, and we don't concede many chances. So effectively, we're solid defensively, and when we have a poor performance, it's because we haven't had the spark up front. So they're the guys that get marked down for it, where really the defenders, they're just a pretty solid unit. So it's quite hard for defenders to get 4 or 5 out of 10, 3, 4, 5s out of 10, where some, like when you look over the whole season, the sort of worst 3 players on the ratings are, or the worst 4, I'll say, because I know what they are, is Chuba Akpom, Casey McAteer, George Hurst, Ivan Azon. So we haven't had 9s contributing good performances. It's basically only if they've scored goals, they've done a huge amount. We just haven't had that solid, good game up front where you've created a lot, move the ball around, help progress the team up the pitch and do things. Generally, they're just not contributing. Someone like Jaden Philogene having a fantastic season, but he scored 10 goals at Portman Road, and away from home, I think he's got 1 assist, the Nunez goal at Hull. So you can be putting in really sort of subpar performances away from home, where generally defenders they're hitting a level and staying at it. So it might not be sort of 9 out of 10, but they're sort of 6, 7 out of 10 every week. Consistent. Where the strikers and midfielders can be 8 or 9 one week and 4 or 5 the next, and there's probably just been a few too many of the 4s and 5s.
Yeah, so they're judged on attacking performances and goal, and predominantly the 9s are judged on their goals and certainly marked on their goals, aren't they? Similarly, along similar lines to the Azor Matasiwa celebration and achievement of the award, Cedric was equally as happy receiving his trademark celebration. Those are AI produced pictures, just for the avoidance of any doubt. We weren't allowed access to the players to hand them their awards. Joe did mention there about the season to date ratings. I don't know. You mentioned the players at the bottom of the season to date ratings, and as you rightly say, the bottom 4 from the bottom up are Akpom, McAteer, Hurst, Azon, but then the 2 above them are Volley Egale and Kayuste. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 6 bottom players are all new summer signings and introductions to the team, aren't they? So that may, tell its own tale, maybe.
Yeah, yes. And the top 3 for the season is: third is Marcelino Nunez, second is Azor Matasiwa, and first is Cedric Kipre again. So I think you can see we seem to settle on a team probably really after that Charlton game, where it was sort of Kipre, O'Shea, Furlong, Davis at the back, Matasiwa and Taylor all could just still flicking about there. Egley on the right, Nunez very, very key in the 10 position, Philogene or Clark on the left, generally Philogene, and then it was Hurst until the injury, and then it's sort of been Azon or Akpom. But it feels like that spine of the team up until the striker, where you've got Kipre and O'Shea at the back, with Furlong slotting into help there. Matasiwa in the middle is giving you that really solid defensive base, and Nunez is sort of our most creative player by some distance up there, isn't he?
Yeah. Having just said that we didn't do particularly well recruiting in the summer, highlighting the bottom 5 of the bottom 6, then our top 3 were also recruited in the summer. So shut your face, Craig, basically, is what Mark Ashton's shouting at his television at the moment, in between flicking back and forth between Claudia and ourselves. Mike's point here, actually, just a quick one. Jacob Greaves has been looking good the last couple of games he's played. One of those being at left back. He put a sterling performance in at left back when he covered for Leif Davis 2 or 3 matches ago, and also in the cup game as well. So it just goes to show, as we will now move on to Mike, segueing nicely onto the depth of our squad. Rich has put together a squad graphic for us, and I shall get it up. And between Joe and myself, we will talk through the various options that we find ourselves with at this particular stage of the transfer window, 2 weeks in, as I say, almost halfway through the transfer window. Hopefully a familiar looking graphic for yourselves, one that we've put up a few times before. Joe, do you want to make your way through the pitch from bottom to top as it is on the screen there, from goalkeeper and then through to the defence?
Well, I guess goalkeepers are fairly easy one. We've got Alex Palmer, Christian Walton, and David Button. The only issue we've got there is Christian Walton's contract is up in the summer, and it doesn't look like there's an option on it. So, with the way he's playing, we're probably going to need to try and tie him down. But it does feel like this goalkeeper position, we just haven't. When we got promoted, both Walton and Hladky were both out of contract. Hladky didn't sign a new one. Walton got a new one. We signed Muric. Then he was struggling. Walton came in. Walton got injured. Palmer was then signed. Palmer was given the number 1 shirt. Christian Walton comes back in the side. He's now looks the better goalkeeper or the most suited goalkeeper to how we're playing. But for this window, we're in a really good position throughout the season with 2 goalkeepers who are very good championship goalkeepers there. But yeah, I think Christian Walton is deserving of a new contract there. Then if we go,
I suppose it's sorry, Joe, just to talk about goalkeepers. I suppose it's a blessing and a curse, really, isn't it? Having 2 relatively equal top-ish end championship goalkeepers. Would we prefer it that way, to have 2 who are pretty even Stevens, or would we prefer to have one who is top end championship, lower Premier League, who's way above the his reserve and will always play regardless? If he has to drop out for one, he'll always come back in for one. I don't know which way's the best way to go at the moment.
Well, I guess it has shown over the last 3 or 4 years that if the goalkeeper is in the side and playing well, no matter the reputation, ability of the other one, they're going to keep their place. Because when Václav Hladky came in at the start of the championship season, there was people, and I wasn't one of them, fortunately, at this stage, but people were saying, look, we need to go and sign a new goalkeeper on loan because Christian Walton's injured and he's so good. And if we start the season with Hladky, we may be sort of struggling within 4 or 5 games. And then it turned out that Hladky stayed in, played every minute of the season, and then left. And we're now back in this league, and Christian Walton's playing really well in this league. So it is sort of, I wouldn't even say horses for courses. It's just if the keeper's in and they're playing well, then they'll stay in the team. And if the other guy comes in and does well, they'll go the other way. So I guess we're sort of comfortable with how it is.
Yeah, and just a quick one here. I'll put the comment up. I won't take the graphic down for now. I'll just pop up across there. I think it's Norman saying that we seem to perform better now now that Walton has replaced Palmer. Whether that's just circumstances, because we're now the injury happened at a time where people were sort of still finding their feet, and now we're getting into a rhythm, and those new players have bedded in a bit more, and it's just a perfect storm from Christian Walton's perspective, in that Asamoah was now up to speed. Cedric Keeprade's now cemented himself in the squad, so he's in the team, so he's got a more settled back 4 in front of him, and also Matasiwa in front of him as well. Or it could be the fact, as Norman says, it could be the fact that Christian Walton just gives us a more solid base, and we do look better as a result.
Well, the game that Christian Walton replaced Alex Palmer in was a Charlton debacle at Portman Road, wasn't it? So I think there was a very much rethink or a focus after that game on improving ourselves at the back first and foremost. So it might be just that he was the fortunate guy that came in, but he kept, I think when we got promoted from League One, he kept 25 clean sheets. He's kept, I think, 7 this year already in like 14 games, where Alex Palmer's kept 1 in his 10. So I know it's not always just about the goalkeeper, but ultimately if the goalie's playing and keeping a clean sheet every other game, you're going to struggle to get him out of the team, aren't you?
And to be fair, there were similar sort of stats, one between Muric and Palmer. Once Palmer had his initial glory days at Villa away, man of the match performances, once he'd got himself in the team and his performances had reached their level, then I think it sort of showed, didn't it? I don't wish to throw a grenade into the chat or on the pod.
Well, Palmer's only kept 1 clean sheet for us so far, and he's played sort of 25 games, isn't it? And I know a lot of that was in the Premier League, but it's still only 1 in 10 games in the Championship, which is crazy. And again, it's not always down to the goalkeeper, but I think the way Christian Walton's playing, the way he's dominating his area, commanding that, coming out, claiming a lot of crosses, he's making us look a more secure side. It might be fortune, but ultimately he's got the shirt now and he's going to struggle to lose it.
Yeah, 100%. Just a quick one here from David, who's mentioning our friend away at loan at Barnet, is it? Kieran Slicker looking very much above the level he's at on loan. Maybe a little bit of a stretch, saying a future Premier League keeper. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how his career. I don't know what his contract situation is, Joe. I don't expect you to know this off the top of your head.
He
Either.
signed like a 4-year deal when he signed, and he signed an extension at one point since
Yes,
he
he
signed
did.
as well, hasn't he? So I'd imagine he's still got a few years left on it. But Henry Gray has gone out on loan to Harrogate as well, and he's 3 years younger than Kieran Slicker, and is at the same level as him now, effectively. So maybe he might be the one that's got the higher ceiling. I guess we'll find out over the coming years.
Yeah, just a very, very quick one here. MPR 26V looking rather resplendent in their canoe, I'm going to say. If any marine people around, please don't tell me off if it's not a canoe and it's a kayak. $9.99 on the super sticker. Thank you very, very much, MPR. Much, much appreciated. We may well just chuck it in the pot to help Ipswich Town buy a number 9 in January. You never know. Joe, do you want to move on to the defensive part of the team?
Yeah, so right back, we all knew it was a big sort of cause for concern, controversy that there was 4 right backs in the squad at the end of the last window, where Harry Clark was not involved at all over that period. He was sort of like the 21st man and travelled with the squad a couple of times, played a couple of under-21s games, but he didn't play in the cup game. We were told it's because he was very close to joining someone. He has since joined Charlton until the end of the season. So I think that problem is solved now, because Ashley Young, with sort of all the will in the world, really struggled at right back, I thought, against Blackpool. He's looked nice when he's come on in central midfield to help shore games up at the end, and I'm sure he's still a good person to have around the club. But I think if you were to have Darnell Furlong missing 6, 7, 8 games in a row, you'd probably want Ben Johnson to be the one starting in there. So I think you need to keep Ben Johnson for that role, and Ashley Young just be the one who is sort of your spare man in your squad. It's
a strange one, isn't it? Because Ashley Young was brought in, I think, with some high hopes, certainly from myself, some high hopes, certainly on the back of his performances for Everton last season at right back. It just seems to have, from my very, very, very untrained eye, just seems to be quite a drastic drop-off in his performances. Do you think it's just old father time has caught up with him over the summer, and it's just the way it is for a 40-year-old playing championship football?
It might just be that he's just not playing regularly enough, and that you're just out of whack effectively, and he's having to come in and try and play the game Darnell Furlong plays, where the role is you are left exposed quite often, and you have to do a lot of 1v1 defending and use your strength, your pace to get yourself out of trouble. Where if he was to be the regular right back, you set the team up in a way to, like, you always want to hide your players' weaknesses and show their strengths, and his strength is getting on the ball, passing there. So it might be that there's some minor tweaks which sort of allow him to excel in the role as opposed to struggle, because you would, in the same way that if you're playing Ashley Young there, you want him getting on the ball, you want him building up attacks, you want him getting forward crossing. You don't want Darnell Furlong doing that, really, because it's just not his game. So it might be that you just, there would need to be some tweaks made for it. But I think we just have to hope it doesn't happen, because Darnell Furlong's been very, very good lately.
Yeah, he has been, and as you said at the beginning, Ashley Young has been useful in a utility role. He's coming on in a variety of positions towards the end of matches, just to add a bit of experience and nous to see matches out. And if we've got enough space on the bench for that to happen, and he's happy for that to be his role, then so be it. Right, moving across the pitch.
Yeah, so 4 centre backs, and you've got Darragh O'Shea, Cedric Kipre, Jacob Greaves, Elkan Baggett. I don't think you really want to touch too much there. Like in an ideal world, you get Elkan Baggett out on loan somewhere, so he's playing games in the second half of the season, and then you bring someone else in to cover that. But how do you do that, if that makes sense? How do you find someone who's willing to come in and be a 4th choice centre back? Because Darragh O'Shea and Kipre are the first choice and been excellent. Jacob Greaves has looked really good when he's played recently, and it's, like I say, a £15 million signing that we've still got very high hopes for as a club. Still 3 years left on his contract after this season, so it's probably just going to stay as it is there. Which, and like I say, Elkan Baggett, he hasn't had a season around the first team under Kieran McKenna yet. He's always been out, so he hasn't had the sort of Cameron Humphreys type season where he had in 23-24, where he was around the squad training the whole time. And I think Kieran McKenna spoke about him after
at the
Saturday's
weekend, wasn't
game.
it? Yeah.
Saying that he'll be a lot better player than he was July the 1st, and that will show when he gets minutes somewhere. But I'd like I say, he just can't be available to go out on loan. It just feels like two quite unnecessary deals to do, doesn't it, to get him out and get someone else in.
Exactly. And the thing is as well, how many teams are going to have 4 senior centre-backs, 2 of them who aren't playing, on the off chance that the 2 who are playing either fall out of form or get suspended or get injured? There aren't many teams that are going to do it. And unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, because he's training every day with Kieran McKenna and a good squad, but Elkenbag may just have to sit this one out. And it was one of the things that Kieran McKenna mentioned, wasn't it, in his post-match interview, was that the 3 ahead of him simply aren't missing many minutes, thankfully.
No, but I don't think any of them have really missed any minutes, have they?
No.
In regards, I think Greaves, Kipre, and O'Shea's played every minute of the season, and I think next to them, Greaves and Kipre have both played the full 90 when they've started, or been on the bench or available to be on the bench at least. So yeah, that has been a strength, the fitness in that part of the squad.
Yeah. Okay. Moving over to the left back, and just a point here that Trevor has made in the chat. Do you think Townsend will be named in the squad for the second half of the season?
I'd say it depends. It doesn't sound like there's any hope he's going to be fit for this season. He's not expected to. But if we've got, come the end of the transfer window, only 24 senior players, well, yeah, you just name him in there just because you can, really. I'd assume. I don't know. If there's any hope of him playing, you might put him in there, but I'd be surprised. It was always spoken about that he was out for the whole season there, wasn't it?
Yeah. And the ever efficient and bombing on Leif Davis as well, who's got, thankfully, another couple of years at least left on his contract, and as has been mentioned in the chat as well, is being ably deputised by Jacob Greaves as and when required. Right, I'm just going to...
And Ashley Young and Ben Johnson can play over there if they need to. Yeah. So I think we are sorted in defensively, aren't we?
Yeah, I think goalkeeper and defence is okay. We'll now move on to the more tricky parts of the team, shall we say. Just a quick word from our friends at Atwell's.
Blue Monday is brought to you in partnership with Atwell Solicitors, your ideal legal partner for property and business law. Whether you're buying a home, starting a business, or just need legal guidance, our dedicated team has got you covered. Trust our award-winning customer service team to handle your legal matters with care and expertise. Find out more at atwells.com or visit us at our offices in Ipswich, Colchester, London, and our new location in Woodbridge.
Super. And a quick one as well, actually, while we're here. Pre-match will be, as ever, Thursday night, 8 p.m, pre-match for Blackburn. Rich and Seb. Preview of the weekend for top-tier subscribers will be around on Friday. And then... presumably, Ben, Dave, and Joe will be around Sunday evening, 8 p.m. on the dot for the post-match flagship for Blackburn Rovers. Right, moving on to, as I said before, the slightly more tricky areas of the pitch. Central midfield, Joe. Yeah, well, we know the 3 basically, don't we? And you were saying before about people not missing minutes when you were talking about the centre midfield. Azor Matasiwa is not missing many minutes himself, including third round home ties against League One opponents, is he? He's acclimatised very, very well to Championship and English League football, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's certainly found his groove, hasn't he? Got straight into it. And normally over the winter period, the players who have their first season in this league struggle at this stage, but he doesn't look like he's missed a beat, does he, in it? But it does feel an area we're short in. Like we've shown Finn Barbrook on there now. He's back from his loan at Lincoln, which didn't go particularly well for him. Cameron Humphreys has gone out on loan, and Marcelino Nunes when we did this at the end of the transfer window was shown in the midfield 5 as it was then, but he's now up in as a 10, and we're now
supplementary 10. Yeah,
effectively we're sort of Matasiwa with Cajuste or Taylor playing, and it does feel like we need to add someone there. I think the AFCON semi-final is taking place at the moment, which is Nigeria versus Morocco. I think if the favourites Morocco win that, it might help free up some business because it feels it seems like we've had a couple of links to Fulham players, and they're waiting on sort of Alex Iwobi and others to come back from the African nations, sort of Calvin Bassey as well there. So that might be something that gets it moving. But yeah, it does feel like we're one short there. But what type of player do you bring in there? But I don't think we'd be, because the thing is, it's like, oh, we need to get back up for Matasiwa. It's like, really, is that possible? Are we going to find a better backup there than Jack Taylor for that role, who's going to be ready to come in and play it for 1-2 games here and there? Yeah, if it's he's out for 4 months, yeah, then you do have a problem. But really, I think if there was a suspension, yeah, that Lewis Travis type is what you need, isn't it? A very experienced Championship midfielder who at the time was happy to come and sit on the bench behind Sam Morsy. Or maybe not happy to sit on the bench, but just wanted to get out of where he was at Blackburn, where he'd fallen out with the manager, and he came across, but he only really he started the game straight after he signed. So I think Morsy was suspended, and I think it was the Leicester game he started. And he only really started 2 or 3 more after that all season. I think maybe 3 or 4 games he started for us and picked up a few minutes here and there, and subsequently moved on. But that's incredibly...
That's all he needed to do there, wasn't it? That's all.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult to find someone who ticks all those boxes, and in his case was available right at the start of the window as well.
Yeah, correct. Just a point, well, I actually won't get them up, but Mike's saying here, Matasiwa and Nunes are the only ones on form in that line. A bit harsh on Jack Taylor, who's done all right when he's come in, but I appreciate the sentiment. Thank you very much, Kirk. I've seen your suggestion. We'll stick that up in a bit when we talk about the rumours that are sort of flying around at the moment. Not too many of them, but Joe, do you want to move a little bit further forward up the pitch? You spoke briefly about Nunes in the number 10. That's, as I said, he's filling a gap, manfully filling the gap that's there. But that's probably reflects more on the 2 guys around him in the graphic who possibly haven't taken their chance in their preferred position.
Yep, and the 2, as I'm sure everyone is aware and can see, is Chuba Akpom and Sam Smodics. Smodics has missed a huge amount of time out for injury, which is had a big injury, then came back and has had a long illness, but he was back on, played a few minutes at the weekend against Blackpool. Chuba Akpom is having to deputise up front with Ivan Azon. They're showing the minutes there in George Hurst's absence, but it's fair to say neither Akpom nor Smodics have done what we've needed them to do in the 10 role. And since Nunes has gone in there, it's sort of transformed the way we have played, the creativity. And I think it's something like 11 goal or 10 goal contributions in sort of 15, 16 games since he's come into the side, and it's made a massive difference to us. And it does, for me, hammers home the point that you need a passer in there, somebody who's looking to get on the ball and move the ball quickly forwards, where Akpom Akpom likes to hold the ball up and bring others into play, and Smodics is sort of constantly buzzing around trying to get around the striker to score goals. But neither of them seem to have worked for us properly, and Nunes has sort of unlocked what we need in that role. So you sort of wonder, like Egley had a few minutes in there at the weekend. Jack Clark had started the game there in the weekend. Connor Chaplin's on loan at Pompey, who could come back. But it does feel like that role has been... I think when we've spoken about the sort of player ratings in previous months, that was a role that just had a big sort of ring around it, as this role is not working, the players here are not doing well. And it's sort of massive credit to Nunes that he's come in and has done really well in that and has solved the problem. But can you get 90 minutes out of him every week? It's very, very difficult, isn't it?
But has he solved a problem that we didn't foresee that we'd need? Because neither Chuba Akpom nor Sam Smodics, as you pointed out, are a Marcelino Nunes type of player. We presumably weren't going into the season expecting our number 10 to be a get on the ball, turn and pass it forward type of player. They were going to be a run past the number 9 type of number 10.
Yeah, no, it's solved a problem that we maybe created ourselves.
Yeah.
The way to say it. Because when you look at who we've played in that role before, it's Connor Chaplin and Amari Hutchison, sort of left-foot players drifting in who, Amari likes to dribble, but they're all very forward-thinking on getting on the ball, like hunting the ball down, demanding it all the time, and then playing it quickly. How many times did we see that left-footed curling ball around the back of the left back for our right winger to get onto, both from Amari Hutchison and Connor Chaplin? And we've lost that. But now Nunez is in there, he is playing that type of pass. He is demanding the ball. He's getting on it. He's pushing it forward quickly. So it's almost like we've gone back to where we were in that role, and we need to be there. It seems that's how we play better. So you've got Akpom, who currently is being a third nine, and Smodics, who may be on his way out. If when you look at players who are in demand from other clubs, that's what you need to do. They're the only players you get rid of. Like it's in an ideal world, you just say, yeah, sit there. We don't need him. We don't need him. We don't need him. There are 3 worst players. We'll get rid of them. But it's never that easy. You can only get rid of the players that someone else wants. So you sometimes have to sort of make compromise on it. And Sam Smodics might be that compromise.
I suppose it will be interesting to see what happens in that number 10 position in the next couple of weeks, won't it? What type of person type of player will we look to recruit if we do successfully recruit someone there? Will it be another Chaplin, Nunez, Hutchinson clone that can play that role, and therefore allowing Nunez to maybe drop back and fill one of the gaps in centre midfield? Or will we try again with an Akpom? I think it just sort of, we seem to have moved on from Akpom and Smodic maybe for that particular role, although we may be apologies for that verb, but we may still have them in our squad should we get promoted next season. I suppose it's a nice issue to have, but I think just the type of player, the role that they will play in that number 10, it'll be interesting to see if we do manage to successfully fill a gap there, what sort of player it will be that will take it. In terms of the wide players, Joe, do you want to start on the right wing? I've got a question or a point here, or 2 points here. Apologies, Aid. Yes, Ogbene is not on our graphic. I shall have a word with our graphics department, and also the fact checker who is sitting alongside me on the pod here, who double check the players. But yeah, no, you're right, Ogbene, and that's a funny one because the rumours were that Sheffield United were looking to send him back in this January transfer window, but it doesn't look like A, we want it to happen, and B, it's able to happen contractually. Joe, you can't see that happening, can you?
No, we were already overstocked at that position. He's played for us this season, so it's not like he can come back and go elsewhere. So I think he'll be at Sheffield United for the remainder of the campaign. He's been injured since the last international break. So he got injured playing for Ireland and hasn't been in a squad since then. But it's not because he's not being selected. He's just simply not fit.
And he was playing regularly for Sheffield United beforehand, wasn't he, as well?
Yeah, I think he started nearly every game. I think maybe it was a sub in 2 or 3, but the majority of his appearances there were starts.
Yeah. And someone else, apologies, I can't find it now, but I will, as and when I find it, I'll put it up there, saying that they'd noticed Wes Burns' contract date and wondered if this is going to be our last season of Wes.
Well, hopefully not, but because he's already shown what he can do when he's coming back. But yeah, it's a very strange situation on that right-hand side where we've spent sort of 30 million in the last transfer window, and Wes Burns still seems the best fit there, and he's seems to be struggling to get back up to speed. And as you'd expect, he looked really, really good against Coventry when he came on. But then when you've seen him in longer periods in matches against Oxford, and when he started the weekend, he doesn't look like he's quite back yet, which is to be expected. I'm sure nothing to worry about. And it's just something he's just working his way through at the moment. But sort of Casey McAteer's, his minutes have been so few, effectively. And even in the cup game at the weekend, he didn't play. I think after like the Norwich game, there's like 5 matches in a row where he didn't get on at all, and it seems like a real, I don't know. Like he's got a 5-year contract, so I'm sure he'll come good over the contract, or 4-year contract he signed. But we need a bit more out of him now, don't we? Because sort of Eggerly, he's had some good moments, had some good performances, but he's also had quite a few anonymous performances in there as well. So it's just what you can do there. But I think you look at the right hand side, it's a bit of a muddle, but it's really okay in that regard, in that we've got Eggerly there who'll play most games. We've got Burns pushing to get back fit. You've got McAteer who can hopefully do a job, but those 3 will remain, you'd imagine. Yeah.
Sean's saying here that he would have Burns ahead of McAteer, but to Joe's point there, unfortunately for yourself, Sean, and maybe both the players, the years in the brackets next to the players' names may well sway decisions one way or the other. Significant investments been made into Casey McAteer, and albeit he's had a disappointing, shall we say, start to his Ipswich Town career, I couldn't possibly comment, Mike. But yeah, I
he's
think
still a young player, isn't he? Though.
Yeah, to Shabby McNally's point, I don't know if that's a profile pic of yours, Shabby, but you're looking good. He'll come good, and Trevor's agreeing with yourself there, Joe, about Eggerly. He has talent, but not the consistency, which you can understand. He's young, new country, etc., getting up to speed. But yeah, maybe for the outlay, you would have expected maybe a bit more, a bit sooner. But we've got another half of the season to go. Just yet.
And when Amari signed for us, he did very little in the first half of the season. He was a sub. He was coming on, making a difference. Where if he can put together a second half of the season as good as Amari Hutchinson did, then we'll be in a fantastic position. Yeah,
exactly. Left-hand side, Joe, I think we're all right there, aren't we?
Yeah, there's just 17 goals between those two in the league so far. So I think we'll be all right there.
Right, where we're possibly not all right is centre forward. And Sean put a question in very early doors. Do you think we'll get another striker this window? I'm sure they're very much hoping that they can get another striker this window. Gary's come out very left field, well, almost left back. Gary's going to consider Greaves as an emergency number 9. He's gone with a Sol Campbell comparison. We could also go the Slabhead comparison, couldn't we? Paul Warhurst comparison for those of us of a certain vintage. Richard Naylor, one way or the other, reverse it. But yeah, centre forward, Joe, is an issue, isn't it?
It is, and it's also an issue that we have got 3 players there, effectively.
Yeah,
you've got George Hurst, who should be back from injury for the game at the weekend, and for all the talk that he hasn't had a fantastic season so far, and I'm sure he'd be disappointed in some of the performances he's had, but we really miss him when he doesn't play. I think it's really noticeable when he's out that we don't get what we need out of our striker's role. You've got Ivan Azon, who's adapting to the English game, but maybe he's still someone who looks good when he comes on for sort of 15, 20 minutes at the end of games, but when he starts, it flatters to deceive a bit for me. I think he had a better game against Coventry in that regard, but it's still not what we need. And Chuba Akpom, when he's there, the sort of total opposite to Ivan Azon. Ivan Azon is sort of chasing down your sort of paper bags and getting himself out of positions, where Chuba Akpom is staying within the sort of width of the post trying to get goals. And if he doesn't get any, it looks like he's had a really quiet game, but you probably trust him when he does get there. So it's a case of I don't think there's any option to end either of those loans. I don't know if we'd want to, but yeah, we all know we want another. We do want another striker in there, because we are one short. It felt we were one short when we went into the start of the season, because we just had Hurst and Azon, and it really feels like we won one short now when sort of Hurst misses a good chunk of games.
The 2026-27, sorry, the 2025-26 season isn't alone in the respect of us potentially going into the season one striker short, is it, over the last 2 or 3 years? But in terms of George Hurst coming back, it allows us, and it allows, to your point, Joe, Ivan Azon to play the role he is potentially more suited to, in terms of coming on in that last 15, 20 minutes and running around and harrying and not giving defenders any respite. So it's potentially a benefit to both players, and also potentially a benefit to Chuba Akpom, who can play his preferred role, or he can drop to the bench and give us a bit more option, strengthen up the bench, because as you say, George Hurst maybe hasn't had a stellar season, but he knows how we play. He knows that role that Kieran McKenna wants from his centre forward, and we know that he can play it. It's just that case of whether he can stay fit for a prolonged period of time, because if we don't have him up front in that central role, then there is a bit of a drop off from a starting perspective on Ivan Azon, sadly. And yeah, we would, let's just all work on the assumption that it's top of the list potentially or front and centre of Mark Ashton's data dashboard. Aid is suggesting that Smodic can play up front working off Núñez with his runs, and also helps with the press. I suppose he's got to get fully fit first, Aid. And I was just about to say he's not particularly tall. Even Azon isn't particularly tall and is playing a half decent role there. Mike suggesting that maybe we can somehow genetically combine Azon and Akpom, and he probably would be the perfect striker for us, wouldn't he, Joe?
Yeah, he would. Yeah, it depends which way you combine them. If you have Akpom's running into the channels with Azon's finishing, it might not be the best combination of two players.
Although, friend of the pod and frequent Telegram poster Dan kind of put a graphic up in Telegram during the week of Azon's, I don't know what stats they were, but they proved that he is getting into an awful lot of very, very good position, way beyond every player every striker in the Championship, wasn't it, Joe? I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, sort of his XG per 90, effectively, isn't it? And big chances per 90. But sadly, if you put them next to his conversion rate, he goes from being the best in the league to the worst in the league.
And I suppose if you had the conversion rate, it's highly unlikely to be playing for Ipswich Town in the Championship. He could well have got his move to.
Yeah, we wouldn't be having this conversation about a new striker.
No, absolutely. Okay, well, I think we've pretty much gone through the squad as it stands at the moment, hopefully given some people a bit of assurance, or complete the opposite in some of the positions throughout the squad. What we'll do now, just to have a very quick look at, as Joe said at the very, very beginning, some of the brief, limited transfer rumours that have been around the last couple of weeks. The one that's sort of circling about the last couple of days, Joe, 18-year-old Ecuadorian and friend and frequenter of New York strip clubs with Jeremy Sarmiento, Kendry Paez, I think I will pronounce it. Reports in South America continue to suggest that Ipswich Town will sign the Chelsea striker once he's been brought back from Strasbourg, who he's currently on loan with. Reports a little bit closer to home, i.e. Crown Street, Ipswich, at the HQ of the East Anglia Daily Times, suggest otherwise. Joe, do you know much about him? And actually, while I talk about it, I think internally we've got some intel on Telegram. Please do think about subscribing to it, everyone. That it may be a bit of a red herring, but we've got nothing else to talk about, so let's talk about an Ecuadorian red herring, Joe.
Yeah, but he is someone who was incredibly highly rated, just sort of talking him up on the sort of Esteval, Lamine Yamal, that sort of level of teenage superstar. Broke through early into the sort of first team at his club back in Ecuador. Chelsea signed him for, I think, £20 million when he was 16. I think he's 18 now. He's got 20 caps for the national team, and I think he's a regular starter for the national team who have qualified for the World Cup. So these aren't mugs. And he's been on loan at Strasbourg at the start for the first half of the season. Like you mentioned, the incident in New York after a international game. All the sort of talk around this is about how he's not got on very well at Strasbourg, and there's talk of sort of, I wouldn't like to say bad attitude, but living the high life. Maybe if you take a boy from a small town in Ecuador and give him £100,000 a week, he may not have the same hunger for things at the moment, and they need to get that attitude sorted around. So they want to move him elsewhere. But I say it does seem like all the running is being done around the club, and they want. It almost feels like they want to get him at Ipswich more than Ipswich want him at the moment. But I think when you look at the type of player he is, he's very much a left-footed, sort of creative 10, the guy that will come in off that right-hand side and play there. Similar to Egley, but maybe more in the sort of Amari Hutchinson, Connor Chaplin style role. So it might be that he's a good fit for number 10. And I think it'd be very exciting to sign a player like this who has the potential to be one of the best players in the world in the future. But it feels like we need to hear some more from the local press that it might be happening, as opposed to because it's not like when we signed Jeremy Sarmiento, there was like a female journalist.
It's pretty much confirmed.
Jeremy Sarmiento signed it for Ipswich. This is a deal. You click on her. She's got 250,000 followers on X. And even like on this one, there's like, there's an ESPN journalist from Ecuador. And you click on it, it's like, he's got 7,000 followers. It's like, it doesn't, yeah, he might be an ESPN journalist, but it's not like he's not the man, if that makes sense. It's not like when you see something from David Ornstein or someone like that here. It seems like they are just a journalist in Ecuador, and I think everyone's struggling to work out where the original links comes from. It seems a little bit sort of Chinese whispery around, sort of a bit of Turkish press, but yeah, that is a talk. It'd be nice to sign a player of that potential caliber, but it doesn't seem like one that's happening imminently. But there was talk again in the Athletic today saying, and Matt Law in the Daily Telegraph, who's very sort of connected with Chelsea, saying he's going to be coming back from Strasbourg. They are going to be ending that loan. There's top championship clubs after him. Well, you'd think we'd be one of those if it is the case. So it might be that stuff is happening, but not yet.
Yeah, and I hadn't been out frequenting these type of establishments for a while. I don't know what the strip club environment is like around Ipswich Town centre. So maybe that can entice him. Maybe it's one that we put on the back burner and try other more experienced alternatives for a week or so, and it's one that we can look at towards the tail end of the window if it's there for us. Certainly up the other end of the experienced spectrum, other rumours were circling around. Well, one was about Paddy Bamford, who has subsequently extended his stay at Sheffield United, but I think it's been widely reported that we did speak to him at the very least to see if he fancied it. But I think, all things considered, I can't imagine he's up for uprooting his family, who are, I would assume, pretty content in Yorkshire somewhere for the sake of 18 months down at Ipswich. I imagine he's earned enough in his career that he can do 18 months wherever he got at Sheffield United and see that out very nicely, Joe.
And it sounded like he signed a very lucrative deal at Sheffield United, which I'm sure we could have matched, but matching it to beating it, how much have you got to beat it by to, like you say, I think he was earning really, really good money at Leeds for a long period. So I think there was an element that he's very, very settled in Yorkshire. It was going to take a sort of a blowing him out of the water offer to get him away from Sheffield United. And if Sheffield United have offered him a lucrative deal and we want to try and blow that out of the water, we're just asking for trouble, really, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Another name, similarly experienced, I suppose, Callum Wilson is a name that's also been mentioned along with Coventry, Celtic and Sevilla, I believe. But you would think in terms of ticking boxes, Joe, maybe not ticking the always available and always 100% fit box, but certainly in terms of many, many other boxes, Callum Wilson ticks many of the boxes that Kiefer Moore ticked 2 years ago, you'd think.
Well, yeah, he'd be a fantastic signing. I think sort of some people say, he's this, he's that. It's like this guy scored like 50 Premier League goals for Newcastle over 3 or 4 seasons and got a lot of caps for England, scored for England at a World Cup, is a fantastic, fantastic player, but has had a really, really tough time of injuries over the sort of 2 seasons preceding this one. I think since he's gone to West Ham, he's been regularly, I think he's played 18 times in the Premier League this season, not all starts, but he's always been available. But it's just since Nuno's come in, and they've signed a couple of strikers that they've basically told him he's no longer needed, so he wants to get out somewhere else. But I think if we could find a way to get him here, that's as good a signing as you're going to get for a instant contribution between now and May. You might be able to find somebody who's got better potential long term that will help you out more next season, the season after. But actually, for the here and now, if he can stay fit between now and the end of the season, he is your number one premium striker on the market for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And should you get promoted, he's not a bad player to have in and around the matchday squad in a Premier League season either. You wouldn't think. In terms of just a quick one here from Trevor asking about Kiefer Moore and whether we missed out on him at the beginning of the season. And I don't know. You were talking about lucrative deals being offered to Patrick Bamford. You would imagine that a similarly lucrative deal was being offered to Kiefer Moore to head back to Wales.
I think you could have even said this last season because he went to Sheffield United quite early for, I think, like £2 million. But we ended up with Ali Al-Hamadi as our third choice striker for most of the season and actually playing a good number of minutes in the Premier League last year, where Kiefer Moore would have been a better bet for those minutes than Ali Al-Hamadi was. And I think he'd be a better bet as a third choice striker than another one now. I think he'd probably be a better bet for a second choice striker than Azon at the moment, just for this season purely. But there, so I think he's one that maybe we could have done a bit more to try and keep.
Yeah, as you say, with hindsight, 2 seasons running, what could potentially have been. Moving down into midfield, I think they're the only real, not even concrete rumours, but ones that have been mentioned. I think Sam Surridge has been mentioned in passing, but there's been no mention in any articles, particularly alongside ourselves, is there?
I think Sam Surridge is one where it's just linked with Championship clubs as well. And again, but he's one who would be a fantastic signing. But I think we need to see a little bit more from the journalists linking it out there.
Yeah, one who definitely has been linked and has actually been quoted by his current manager as being of an interest to ourselves is Tom Cairney, Fulham's current Premier League captain in centre midfield, albeit 34-year-old captain Joe. You would think that he, I know we're talking about tick even more boxes here, Joe, down into centre midfield, wouldn't he? Crikey.
Yeah, and he started a couple of games recently, I think, against both Arsenal and Liverpool. But I sort of mentioned earlier, Fulham have got Iwobi and others at AFCON. So we really need to wait for that to play out before he's going to be available, if he is available. But my sort of steer on it that I got was that he's probably happy to sit out the rest of this season with Fulham and become a free agent in the summer, which opens up a little bit more for him to do. So
there's no point in him moving in January
there,
to us, is there? There's no point in moving to January to us and we may not get promoted if he can wait until the end of the season and potentially have the pick of 3 promoted clubs plus 2 or 3 who are already in the Premier League who wouldn't mind a very, very experienced Premier League centre midfielder, an ex-captain to join their ranks. So, I think from his own career perspective, it's not a decision he needs to make in January, is it?
No, I wouldn't say so. And he's, like I say, been one of Fulham's sort of best ever players, really, hasn't he? And he'll want to have a real swan song there too.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it in terms of incoming rumours. Now, you can look at this both ways. You can look at it as being it's a very, very tight ship around Ipswich Town and nothing's being leaked. Or you can look at it as why the bloody hell aren't we doing more? Why are we not hearing more about any rumours coming in? I'm sure things will hopefully pan out one way or the other over the next week, you would hope, just to give people a bit more time to bid into the squad. One who's potentially a little bit of flux, Connor Chaplin, Joe. Any thoughts about what we should or shouldn't, could or couldn't do with Connor at Portsmouth?
Obviously, we don't know what Connor Chaplin's views on it is. He's gone back to his hometown club to, I guess, try and win a longer term deal there to see where he is. But sort of all things being equal, I think he'd improve us being in the squad as a number 10. I think he's, other than, I think Nunez has sort of probably shown a level above him and probably would stand above him. But as a reserve for Nunez, as somebody to come in and try and break things down, well, I think I'd rather Connor Chaplin be coming on into that role than Chuba Akpom or Sam Spodix. So, yeah, all things being equal, I'd say get him back. But like I say, it's not as simple as that. We all know it isn't. But yeah, I personally would be very happy to see him back here.
And finally, 2 who have departed for this season and potentially one forever. As you mentioned him at the very beginning, Joe, Harry Clark has gone to Charlton, and it looks like he has played his last game. He's been fit since September and hasn't even got anywhere near the squad, has he, let alone the team. Out of contract in the summer, as I say. His last match was a year, I think, 3rd round of the FA Cup this time, almost exactly this time last year. So it looks like we're going to have said our goodbyes to Harry Clark with everyone's best wishes. I am 100% certain about that. And finally, Cameron Humphreys has joined Huddersfield with Lee Grant. Lost his first game at the weekend and got chucked straight in front of the post-match press afterwards, didn't he, Joe? Which was rather nice of his teammates and his manager.
Yeah, but I think it probably shows what sort of high regard he's held in by sort of Lee Grant and by Kieran McKenna here, that he's able to get up and do that in the first time. But that's 2 squad spaces freed up, and I think this window you're probably looking at 3 signings. You're probably looking at a striker, potentially an attacking midfielder, and another midfielder. So we're really there on the outgoings now. It's just a case of if we need to find one more, we can do so later in the window. There's been some names mentioned in the chat, which I'm sure people have seen, and ones where we'd like to get. But it does feel like we're playing a waiting game, which you're going to need to at this stage of the window for a parachute club to improve your team and your squad.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I say to that point, Kirk has suggested Ryan Yates, and I think there may be some movement within Nottingham Forest squad, which, to Joe's point, may be a knock-on effect, and we're not really going to know, as ever is the case in January. Once you have to wait your turn in the pecking order, don't you, to see where you're at and see what other clubs are doing with their squads. Oxlade-Chamberlain's being mentioned as a free agent by Aid. Pay as you play to the end of the season. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what Mark Ashton is going to pull out of his hat between now and is it January the 31st? Well, 31st is a Saturday, so is it the Monday?
Probably the
2nd
of February, isn't it? Yeah.
2nd of Feb, yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. That's us done. I think we're almost exactly on the hour. Well done, Joe. Well done, me. Thank you very much to everyone in the chat. As I say, thank you very much to Joe. You'll see Joe again on Sunday evening. Tomorrow night, Rich and Seb will be previewing Blackburn, as I said earlier, flagship Sunday. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Thank you for suggestions. Thank you for your questions. This has been Blue Monday, an Ipswich Town podcast. We shall see you next time.